It was a way, and for now, that was enough. The night felt endless, her strength fading with every stroke. Unable to see the river bank, she pushed forward blindly. Then something large thrashed in the water behind her. She froze, breath caught in her throat. "Oh, God, what was that?" she whispered in the dark. She didn't dare turn around. Tears welled, fear gnawed at her chest, anger burned through her limbs. She had to keep going, had to reach something, anything, before it was too late. Time and distance ruled her fate now. Either the sun would rise enough to show her the way, or the river would end. Neither could come fast enough. More than once she thought of turning back, but the image of Alejandro's knowing smirk steeled her spine. Before she saw it, she heard it. Birdsong, a sharp trill, then another, like the jungle announcing the sun's arrival. Her heart leapt. The darkness was lifting. The riverbanks took shape in the soft gray light, branches arching overhead, rocks jutting from the bank. Ahead, the narrow channel widened, and something caught her eye. A break in the foliage, worn smooth. A makeshift boat launch. She let herself drift with the current, hope rising in her throat. Maybe, just maybe, somebody was nearby. Her raft of sticks and bra straps bobbed gently ahead of her, a ridiculous but loyal companion in this quiet stretch of water. Every muscle ached from guiding it forward. The dry patch of ground felt like a gift. She crawled out on hands and knees, dragging the raft behind her, too tired to stand. Finally, a place to sit. She pulled out one of the beers and gave a dry laugh at the name on the bottle. Salva vida, if only. She picked up a rock and knocked the cap loose. The beer hissed, frothing up the neck, hot, over-bubbly, hard to swallow. "I guess something to drink still counts as a lifesaver," she muttered, coughing before managing a wry smile. Her wet clothes and shoes left a muddy puddle beneath her. With a groan, she forced herself up. Her first steps were a struggle. The gooey earth clung to her boots as if trying to drag her back. The road stretched ahead, dry, dusty, and lifeless, except for the deep, rutted tire tracks etched into the earth. Leah walked nearly an hour before the tracks veered into a narrow driveway. Her steps quickened, then broke into a desperate jog. Hope pulled her forward, down the rutted path. Jungle pressed close on both sides, shadows twisting into wild, shifting shapes. She thought of how her boots had clung to the muck at the river's edge, as if warning her not to leave. A chill crept up her spine. She glanced back. The shadows unnerved her now. Foreboding knotted in her gut. The same gut growled like a wild jaguar with hunger. She crouched instinctively, startled by the sound of men's voices up ahead. Rough and close. She strained to listen. Not English, not Spanish. The words made no sense. The shadows weren't shadows anymore. Two men in black loomed over her, AK-47s jammed against her skull. One wore a scarf across his face, the other a black turban and a stare that cut through her. He barked a command she couldn't understand and jabbed the rifle into her shoulder, knocking the breath from her lungs. She raised her arms, stood, and took a step back, her heart booming like a drum. The sound filled her ears, echoed in her chest, her body fighting to stay alive. Her eyes fixed on a crude symbol painted on the side of a corrugated shack. A jagged mark, slashed in black and outlined in red. It was the last thing she saw before her head snapped back and a sack dropped over her. Her gut screamed. It wasn't graffiti. Was it a warning or a brand? Being manhandled, blinded, and dragged through the dirt by her armpits hadn't been part of her training either. She stumbled and pitched forward, landing on solid concrete, cold, damp, unforgiving. It took her moments to realize her hands were bound at her sides. She couldn't lift them, couldn't see, couldn't feel her way around. Every sense crashed into her nerves at once. Thirst, hunger, pain, blindness, the thrum of some distant noise. Nothing made sense. Nothing came into focus. The world beneath the sack spun nonstop. A door screeched open, jolting her. Before she could gather a thought, a man's voice exploded into the room, screaming in a language she couldn't understand. There were bursts of Spanish in the cadence. At least, that's what it sounded like. Strangely, the Adam Sandler movie Spanglish popped into her head. Quaking, her throat dry and cracked, she eked out, "Habla español." All communication ended when his boot slammed into her side. Pain detonated through her ribs. Something cracked, and the world spun as she crumpled, gasping. Signs of dehydration mingled with the agony when she realized no tears were forming. She was crying, but no flood blurred her vision. No wetness spilled down her cheeks. Her body had nothing left to give. The convulsions came anyway, racking her frame. Pain surged, then vanished. That's when she knew. She was dying, and then nothing. A scream tore through her insides, but only a squeak escaped her lips. Ice slammed into her chest, her face, her back. She gasped before she could stop it. The cold clawed down her throat, ripping her lungs awake. She choked, convulsed, then blinked. The sack was gone. The world returned in blinding fragments. Light, shadow, boots, metal, voices barking. Her body curled on instinct, every nerve raw, her skin soaked yet steaming in the jungle heat. She wasn't dead, not yet, but she wished she was. 3 large men loomed over her. Surrender was the only option if she wanted to survive. They stepped aside as another figure entered. Leah froze, stunned beyond even her current pain and disbelief. Alejandro crouched in front of her. "Where's Mike?" she rasped, eyes darting between the strangers. "Is he part of this too?" It was the only thought that cut through the fog. Who else had betrayed her? Alejandro smirked, shook his head. "That piece of shit is as useless as a baboon." The fog thickened. Not the kind that clung to the river, but the kind that swirled behind her eyes, blurring the edges of truth. Mike and Alejandro were supposed to be tight. Brothers. Drinking buddies. How could that just vanish? Or had it all been an act from the start? Her body forced clarity. "I'm hungry. Can I please have something to eat?" Everything else fell away. No accusations. No questions. Just the raw, primal need. Food, water, something real. Alejandro crouched again too close. His grin oozed charms that rotted at the edges. He brushed a knuckle down her cheek, slow and deliberate. "There now," he murmured, as if soothing a child or a pet. "Can't have you starving, princessa." He didn't break eye contact as he yelled over his shoulder, "Bring her something to eat." The warmth in his tone didn't match the glint in his eyes. Nothing about this was kindness. Caged in by steel-toed boots, Leah whimpered under his touch, too afraid to pull away. A chipped plate of beans and rice appeared in his hand, along with a sweating bottle of Coca-Cola. The familiar red label sparked something in her. Gratitude, maybe even hope. She shifted on the concrete, trying to reclaim a sliver of dignity. Alejandro caught the hunger in her eyes, and grinned. "You want this, don't you?" he teased, holding the bottle just out of reach. He barked something to one of the others in language she didn't understand. The meaning became clear when a small table and 2 metal chairs scraped across the floor into the center of the room. "Get up if you want to eat," Alejandro said. "We'll share a meal, and while you chew, I'll entertain you with questions." The tallest of the men stepped forward, lanky, angular, sharp elbows, eyes black as coal. She recognized him instantly. One of the shadows from the jungle, a rifle once jammed against her skull. Leah flinched, inching backward across the floor, her legs barely responding. "Stop it, you fool," Alejandro snapped. "He's just untying your hands." Eyes wide with fear, she froze. But what came next rattled her more than the violence had. The man's touch was unexpectedly gentle. He lifted her bound wrists with care, slipped a steadying arm beneath her elbow, guiding her upright. Her legs trembled with each step, but he didn't rush her. Silent, almost reverent, he helped her into the chair, as if she were a guest instead of a prisoner. Alejandro leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers steepled like a professor about to begin lecture. "I've learned a lot about you, gringuita," he purred, drawing out the word. "Your family, where you went to school, even what you studied. Impressive for someone so naive." Leah froze, spoon halfway to her mouth. He smiled wider, feeding on her reaction. "Would you like to know what else I learned?" he asked, head tilting slightly, like a vulture deciding where to peck first. She lowered the spoon and swallowed hard. Her instinct screamed, "Say nothing!" but curiosity and fear twisted together in her gut. "Go ahead," she said, her voice low. He leaned in just enough to make her skin crawl. "I learned how much you really like the baboon," he said, voice smooth as oil. "Mike Sullivan, always playing the dumb muscle. Not so dumb when he's wrapped around you, eh?" Leah's face flushed hot, despite the chill of her soaked clothes. She looked down, pretending to focus on the rice and beans, but the bite on her spoon trembled. Alejandro chuckled, low, smug, mean. "Oh, gringuita, don't look so shy now. He bragged about you, you know. He said you were, what was it? Worth the trip." Her stomach twisted. She clenched the spoon tighter, grounding herself. He tapped the table once with a finger. "Do you want to know where he is now?" Leah forced herself to meet his eyes. "I don't give a damn about Mike Sullivan," she spat. "I want to know why you have me here, why you're torturing me. What the hell do you want?" Alejandro's smile widened. He leaned back in the chair, her pain clearly amusing him. "Oh, now, that's the spirit," he said, snapping his fingers for one of the men to refill her Coke. "You asked one question, but really there are 3. Torture? Please. That was just the intake process. You're alive, aren't you?" She glared. The Coke bottle trembled slightly in her hand as she fought to stay upright in the chair. "What I want," he dragged out the words, languid and syrupy, danger collided underneath, "is to know what you really came here for. Don't insult me with the Centraga line about coffee inspections. You and I both know you're not here to grade beans." He leaned forward again, his voice dropping, cold, deliberate. "Tell me, Leah, who are you really working for?" "My job is why I'm here." She held his stare, refusing to flinch. "You were paid by Centraga. How did you put it? To keep me safe?" Alejandro let out a short laugh, knife scraping metal, humorless and sharp. "Oh, Leah," he said, shaking his head slowly. Still clinging to contracts and paperwork like they mean something out here. He tapped his temple with one finger. You're smart, but not smart enough. Centraga pays a lot of people. His smile thinned. But they don't always know what they're paying for. He leaned in again, his voice spreading like oil over water. Did you really think your job was to inspect beans? Or that mine was to babysit some gringa with soft hands and questions?